Hey guys, welcome back to another stream. Sorry, my face is like really red because I just did a HIIT workout and my body's clearly still recovering from it. So don't mind me. But my guest today, I've wanted to get him on for a while. We actually had this scheduled for like 2 weeks and the timing is just like not great, but I also wouldn't want to have anybody else on because I feel like this guest is very rational and can help calm me down a little bit after everything that's going on. And yeah, so Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today on my channel.
No worries, thanks for having me on. Yeah, very interesting timing because this was just going to be like a basic Wolves preview, and that was even going to be the case on like Sunday. So, Chelsea Football Club, Chelsea. That's what I'm going to say. It's just expect the unexpected. That's what I'll say. The Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah, they knew that we were going to have this stream. So overall, how are you doing? How are you feeling with everything? Because I know it's been a rough couple of days for Chelsea fans.
Uh, Probably not as bad as yesterday. It's like that's those stages of grief, isn't it? With you go through like denial, anger. What is it? Bargaining. Sort of acceptance. Like I don't know if I'm quite acceptance yet, but
We're not there yet. Maybe by the end of the stream, but no.
it's obviously been harsh, isn't it? It's been quite a tough, 24 hours probably over that now. I think for Chelsea fans, in some ways, it's hard to say that what happened yesterday was unexpected completely. But I think the fact that we got Sunday's game and Lampard was still there, I think it was still going to hit whatever happened and whenever it happened. So, yeah, I mean, Chelsea Football Club's still here. We're still going to be supporting the club. There's these players still need our support, and a new coach needs our support. So, but yeah, obviously, I think for a lot of Chelsea fans, it's going to be at least a little bit weird for a few games, as it always is when you make a change, especially mid-season, which we haven't done for a while.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Actually, our last change mid-season, I think, was Mourinho, right? So it's been a couple of years since we've had to do that. I think that there's just this air probably in the dressing room because from the reports that came out, it just seems like I was not aware of this, but it just seems that there are two very divided camps in Chelsea Football Club. Tomorrow's loan makes a lot more sense to me now, and I think that Tuchel is going to have a really big task ahead for trying to unify these two sides. How do you feel about that? You think that he's going to be up for the job? How long it's going to take? What are your thoughts?
I feel sorry for the bloke already. I do. I feel, and I do. I feel sorry for him. I think in some ways he's in a hiding to nothing. Because I feel when I look at the club he's picking up, it's more to do with the reports we've heard in recent days about Lampard and what he had to deal with, and it sounds unworkable. It sounds mind bending, to be honest. Some of the stuff that Frank had to deal with and some of the stuff that Sarri's had to deal with and Conte's had to deal with and Jose's had to deal with, you can understand why there's been so many fallings out. And I wish him the best, obviously. And this is not a lot of stuff I'm talking about on my channel at the moment regarding Tuchel. This is nothing to do with him tactically and his own personal ability. I'm concerned also about when fans are allowed back in the stadium. And I feel that there are elements to Sarri. I say Sarri, Freudian slip there. There are elements to Tuchel that remind me of Sarri, and I can see it going in the same direction. I don't know if Sarri has sort of broken the seal on that, and it's like going to be a pendulum swing from each manager to the next, and it depends on what camp you're in. I hate the fact that there is camps and people feel like that about Chelsea, and we just can't all be happy about Chelsea doing the best. I do feel, though, with the current structure of Chelsea Football Club, unless he wins the Premier League in the first season, unless he does something miraculous in the first season, I'm not talking about fans here. I'm talking about the ownership. I don't think this is going to last long, and that's why he's got an 18-month contract. I think even with an 18-month contract, he still may get a payout. So it's very hard for me I think it's very hard to me within like 24 hours to completely forget what I think I think you're being illogical if you ask Chelsea fans to just block out what's just happened,
No,
right? Just block out so much history before then. So that's why it's tough. But I obviously wish him the best. I'm sure we'll get into more of Tuchel because I think there are very exciting elements to him, no doubt.
Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like we were trying to build something with Frank Lampard, and that was the impression that I and like many people I think had, that the club had this short-term mentality of just this win or sack managers, and I felt like that they were hiring Lampard to try to change that. And then now with the reports that have come out, I was so frustrated because it felt like it was just a way for us to unite after getting a transfer ban and Hazard leaving. And like, if you read the Athletic article, it said that they wanted to sack him last season. They wanted to sack him last season, but they couldn't because he got top 4 and FA Cup final. And they said, as soon as there's a bad run of form, we're going to sack him and bring somebody else in. So for me, it feels like the club mentality hasn't changed. That's something that's worked in the past. Many people are happy with it and just on to the next one. Me personally, I wish that we would have more of a longer term mentality. I know that the results weren't there for Frank Lampard. You just look at the statistics and he has the worst win percentage, but it still hurts as Chelsea fans. And I think we all just really wanted to see him succeed so badly. So this loss just like, it just hurts so much more. I'm like, please do not hire any more Chelsea managers or Chelsea legends as managers, because my heart literally cannot take it right now.
Yeah, I think there's that sort of, I think for a lot of people, and there are different extremes to this. I think there's a lot of people who I spoke to yesterday who go to the bridge pretty regularly. Of course, they can't at the moment, but they've sort of said they're already feeling quite disconnected from football naturally because they can't go to games and having to watch at home. And I know that there's a lot of Chelsea fans who, or at least fans that I know, who have said they don't feel as passionate about going back to the bridge when they can because of this. You've seen the reaction of supporters group like We Are The Shed, who do some great work, and what they said yesterday publicly. The CFC UK fanzine I write for, and very strong in backing Frank Lampard. It's tough. It really is. And I think there's so much to get into in terms of the way this club is moving and the way this club seems to still think it's got the quality of squad it had 10 years ago. I think there's a lot of people who are still stuck 10 years ago in the way they think about Chelsea Football Club. I think there are people who still think we've got Lampard, JT, Didier, who could pull us out of situations like this. And then we talk about not having leaders in this squad. It's just, it's baffling to me that, once again, I look at Tuchel and I look at the expectations probably of him is that, he's coming in and he's probably expected to get top 4 instantly. Which to be fair, on the crazy nature of this Premier League season is, can obviously be done. It's absolutely
top 4, which is actually really surprising. I looked it up today, and I know we're sitting at 9th, but I felt like we were more points off given our recent form. But all of the teams have been dropping points.
5 points, I think it is off Klopp's Liverpool, which, when you talk about stats of why Frank Lampard should be sacked, I mean, that's one of those that is quite staggering, really, because, it shows you. I think it's interesting. I'm pretty sure, like me, I think a lot of people have been looking at and hearing a lot of noises about Frank Lampard and sort of the reaction of, say, other coaches. And when you step out of the Chelsea bubble, sort of the echo chamber of Chelsea fans and what we think about Chelsea, you realize how crazy the mindset of Chelsea, or at least the Chelsea hierarchy, is to think that, well, of course Lampard's got to be sacked because we're Chelsea. Doesn't matter, we haven't won a Premier League title or competed for one since 2017. This is what we have to do. Listening to Solskjaer, who went through a very tricky patch, who could have been sacked, he would have. It's weird seeing comparisons between Solskjaer and Lampard, because I'm like, if Solskjaer was a Chelsea manager, he would have been sacked. If Arteta was a Chelsea manager, he would have been sacked. He was not been given the time. So it's baffling to me, and it's just this sense of exhaustion. And I feel I can't deny, I think I'd be dishonest if I told you that my emotional connection to this season is the same as it was on Sunday. It's not. And I really hope that changes. I really hope I can have at least a week and then I'll be fully connected again. But it's very difficult at the moment. And I feel there's a lot of people like that, because it's hard to invest personally in a manager, because you're not going to be a long mate. This is nothing against you. This is, and also I think there's a lot of fans who are not always prioritizing with Frank. Like, it wasn't always the prioritizing about winning. It was about the emotional connection you had to your club, to your manager. the feeling that that team represented you. That's unfortunately, I think in the way we think about modern football, these are things that matter to people. And I think for a lot of Chelsea fans who've seen us win everything, there was a sense that it could be something deeper. And unfortunately, it's just going to be like this, isn't it? You know, it's just going to be revolving door of managers come in and
Daniel.
Well, but listen to the thing.
My heart right now.
No. But it's like I want to be the positive guy, right? I try and look at things positively, but it's very hard for me to watch similar things happen over and over again. I feel I'd be naive and stupid if I came out here and went. I've seen people literally yesterday telling me that sacking Lampard is still part of the 5-year project. So I'm like, wakey, like this is not, you know, reality right now. Reality is we just sacked another manager. We've given a new one an 18-month contract. Unless the bloke wins 2 titles in a row, unless the bloke does it incredibly well, the likelihood is not only with read that article in The Athletic. Actually, read both articles in The Athletic. Read the breakdown of why Lampard got sacked, and then read the Thomas Tuchel sort of breakdown. I mean, if I wanted to create a Chelsea manager who triggered our hierarchy, who ticked all the boxes of things that you went, this is a list, this is an itinerary of things that are going to cause him to lose his job, it would be Thomas Tuchel. It would be his struggle with internal politics at the PSG. I'm sorry, this is not me. I don't want people watching to think I'm dissing Tuchel. He's a very good coach. I have to be honest. I have to be honest with what I'm seeing historically from Chelsea. And I think it's very difficult for me at the moment to just go and just zone out and go, well, that's happened now. That's in the past. Until I'm shown evidence that something can change, because I'm not going to buy into it.
No, I think like everybody needs time. It's not going to be so easy just to say like, oh, it's a new day. Oh, I've slept on it. I'm feeling better. Like I was still feeling so bad today. But I do want to try to hype you up a little bit. I had a stream with Marius Fischer. He's an Arsenal fan and he's German. So he followed Tuchel his entire career. Like he was so knowledgeable, and he told me that he is one of the top 10, but arguably top 5 managers in the world. And he was like, I would love to have this guy at Arsenal. And I asked him about how he would fit in at Chelsea, right? Because we know that there's this massive contention between the board and like a figure like Antonio Conte, and if that would be a point of contention. He said, like if anything happens, that's going to be the breaking point. But like, you know, hopefully things can work out. But you know, it's normal that a manager gets upset if they don't get the players that they want in the market. But so we don't really know how long he's going to last, right? But I'm trying to be optimistic and say, let's hope that he at least sees out his 18-month contract. But he did say he's a brilliant tactician, like one of the best that you could have, which I think is something that Chelsea really needs right now. Like after the article came out that there were players basically not playing for Lampard. I don't want to put it in those words, but that like the 2 different camps of players, I think that, you know, at that point it seems that what could Lampard do to fix that? You know, it was just an unfortunate situation where you have all these players that should have been sold in the summer. They weren't sold. And so you're left with an oversized camp. Obviously, if players aren't playing, they're going to be unhappy. They're going to cause noise. The extent to which they caused the noise was ridiculous, in my opinion. And to which they cause the problems as well. Like I've already ranted about that like 3 times. So I'm not going to go into it. But he did say that he thought that Tuchel would be somebody who could bring together this squad, that he has really good man management skills, and that he's such a good tactician that he, with the training ground, he knows the exercises to do and like knows that how to get the best out of all of the players. And if something isn't working, he'll switch it around to try to get it to work. And I think that that's something that we like need right now after Lampard getting sacked, like just somebody to try to come in, be a fiery personality, somebody that isn't going to take shit, you know, and fire up these players again and get back to winning, because that's what we need to do to get top 4. What do you think?
I think he is very impressive, and you know, there are parts to his coaching that, you know, do excite me. I like the I think the German influence and the fact that he comes from a school of, say, Ralf Rangnick and Ralf Hasenhüttl and Julian Nagelsmann and Jurgen Klopp, if you look at his success at Mainz, um, I think he almost, in some way, outdid Jurgen Klopp in terms of, I think it was the points ratio, but
Yeah.
what he did with that team was incredible, really. And I think that showed his ability to work with limited resources and get the best out of a team, which is, I think, a great sign in a manager, especially given that it was his first big job, his first senior job after working at Stuttgart in the academy. Which I think is another positive, that he did work with young players, and he has shown, especially at Borussia Dortmund, he has shown an ability. I think if you were to look at, say, the mix of Chelsea squad at the moment of young players and older senior players, he showed at Borussia Dortmund and PSG that he can get the best out of high profile players, like senior players, like expensive players, but also young players as well. And that's what he's going to have to do with this team. That's because that is the blend that we've got at the moment, right? He's a astute tactician. He's scientific about the game, and that does excite me. I think to position, he's a bit. Did I cut out for a sec?
Yeah, sorry, you've cut. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi or yours, because I know my Wi-Fi gets kind of spotty as well.
Am I back? Am I back now? Is it all good? Okay. As I was saying, so I think he's got to sort of merge. I think he's got to merge those two things with the current Chelsea squad, and I think that's going to be his biggest challenge. But there are interesting things to his game. I think, interestingly, there was a book I was reading about a year ago called The Edge, which I suggest everyone reads, not just for Tuchel, because they interviewed Tuchel in it, and he speaks about his time at Borussia Dortmund and Ousmane Dembele. And what he did with Dembele there was really exciting, and I hope he can have a similar influence on some of our young players. So yeah, I think that we've got definitely a high caliber coach here who's been to a Champions League final very recently, and I think has got the capability absolutely to galvanize this squad. It always comes back to how long that will be, but as we've seen with, say, Antonio Conte, if you can do it for one season, you can do pretty incredible things. So I really hope that he can do that, because I think absolutely he was what you saw he did at Mainz, and then subsequently at Dortmund, and then moving on to PSG. There's definitely a lot of evidence there that we've got one of the best tacticians in the modern game. So that should excite fans, and at least fans who've been frustrated in recent weeks with the tactics and the style of play. I think you're going to get someone who is going to drill that into the team and is going to be really on top of that from the word go, and hopefully, with his style of play at, say, Dortmund, he can replicate some of that at Chelsea. And I think we may see some really good attacking football.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely well said. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that, and hopefully to get the best out of players like Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, who I don't think have been playing at their best. It seems like I still don't know like their best position or what formation suits them. And I think that like Tuchel will be somebody who might be able to get the best out of them and figure out, okay, Havertz is better playing as a 9 or as a 10 or whatever it is. And same for Werner. So I'm very excited to see that. I want to switch slightly to let's look at the Wolves game. It's really difficult to preview this at all because it's just an absolute mess, right? He's having his first training session now. Just a gut reaction. How do you think the team's going to do? Because it's just like they've had this massive change all of a sudden. Frank Lampard is sacked. There are a lot of academy players that really, really regarded him, and now they have a game tomorrow with a new manager training right now. What do you think? You think it's going to, I don't know, go well? Are you very nervous for it? How are you feeling about the game?
I'm not going to say, I think one of the reliefs I have of this game, I don't have a lot of nerves towards it, which I usually do. I don't have, I'm quite sort of distanced from this game, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think in terms of tactically, in terms of the way he sets up. Obviously he's had one training session to work with these players. I assume at least for tomorrow, I'm pretty sure Anthony Barry and Joe Edwards, who were taking a training session, I think yesterday, will probably be influencing his decision making for this game. At least I'm pretty sure they'll be saying to him and advising him maybe about player performances and of course working closely with Lampard. I'm pretty sure he'll lean on them for this game. Tactically, I mean, I would say predominantly, if you were to look back at his history, he has played a 4-3-3. I mean, you see a lot of modern managers do that, but that's a bit simplistic to say. He's not a Sarri. He's not wedded to the 4-3-3. I think what you'll see over his time at Chelsea is he will probably move around formations depending on the game. But I think for tomorrow, he may just go with a standard 4-3-3, just see who's working for him, who's not. It's not a preseason friendly, but you get one, it's very hard to guess what the team's going to look like.
Yeah, somebody actually asked us a question and they said, do you think that he may potentially play it safe by playing a back five tomorrow since it's his first game in charge? What do you think?
I don't see him playing a back five. I have to be honest. I think, no, I don't think he. I thought Frank was going to play a back five if he would have got to this game. I got a sense that he may switch to the formation. I don't think he'll do it. He may surprise us. I can't see that happening. It's just very difficult to guess. I mean, I think even me saying that's not going to happen, I think is a bit ridiculous, to be honest, because we have no idea, do we? We're just going to have to wait and see and go from there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be an interesting game for sure. I'm going to be refreshing my phone for that lineup. I'm looking through to see if we're getting any other questions. Oh my God. This is my friend. Hi, Mariana. I can't believe we're 25 minutes into this episode and I am still like red as a tomato, but we move. So going into tomorrow, do you think that we're going to see, best guess, right? Do you think that we're going to see players that historically played well under Frank, or do you think that we're going to see more senior players that found themselves outside of the team a little bit? What do you think?
I think the obvious name, right, we're thinking of is Antonio Rudiger. But I feel like Antonio Rudiger, I mean, you can't really call him a complete outcast because he did say he was playing, wasn't he, last week? So it's tough to say that he would be, say, an amazing, like, surprise, shock inclusion. But obviously, because apparently Tuchel wanted Rudiger at one point at PSG, he's a natural player. And apparently, given the reports we've heard about Lampard and the conflict there, Rudiger was one of those players. So, I mean, as I've seen with some of the comments, if he picks Alonso, I don't see a lot. It'd be tough to guess what's going to happen. I think I think tomorrow he'll probably lean on the advice of Barry and Edwards, and hopefully he'll think about playing Mason Mount, because for me it's Mason Mount and then basically everyone else.
I think a lot of Chelsea fans can agree with that. I saw a really interesting comment. I haven't checked Twitter. It said, Matt just tweeted that Conte is unsettled due to the chaos at Chelsea. I don't know if he's even available for the game. I think he's still injured, but I hope that he gets settled, because I think that he could potentially be very key for Tuchel and his system. But yeah, that's very interesting. I want to read more about it. So some people are asking us, predicted starting 11. Like, shall we just try our best to predict? We can look back and see how close we got given the circumstances. Yeah. If we get it right, like, that's really impressive. So I think in goal we know who it's going to be. Like, I think,
unless Marina's telling him part of his contract is he has to start playing Kepa again. And I wonder what tactics Tuchel's going to tell Kepa that Frank wasn't telling him. Keep the ball out the goal more. I wonder if that's going to be a tactic that, tactical instructions that I think that apparently Frank was missing. I wonder what's going to happen there. So that may be in his contract. But obviously it's got to be Edouard Mendy, right? Or Willy Caballero, or maybe Petr Cech can dust off his gloves and get in goal, just for a laugh. So I'll probably go with Edouard Mendy. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that Mendy is going to start. He was brought in, and I do think that at the beginning of the season, like, Marina did see the performances of Kepa and saw, like, okay, they actually are not good. Maybe it's her pride getting a little bit hurt because we spent so much money on him. But at that point, he was just costing us way too many goals. And I hope he can find form, but with another team, I'm pretty happy with Mendy and goal. He hadn't been great recently, but I did think like versus Leicester, he had a very good game. It could have been 6-0 without him. So I was happy with that. Now, looking at the right back, it's interesting because do you play Reece James, who's more attacking minded, or do you play Azpilicueta, who's the club captain and has a lot of experience?
I think it's got to be Reece, right? I know he's just returned from injury. So for me, it's got to be Reece James. I don't understand why it wouldn't be. Maybe unless he's really going on experience. Yeah, Reece is the future of this club, and he's. I think people forget how good he was before he got that injury, and he obviously came back too early for Arsenal. And even the Leicester game, I think he was a lot better against Luton. Just in terms of, I know everyone will turn around and go to Luton, but in terms of fitness, I think he looked a lot more himself. So, and the style of football that Tuchel plays, he relies on width from his fullbacks, like a bit like Frank does, like a lot of managers do. Playing, getting your fullbacks into your attacking play is a key part of the modern game. So, yeah, for me, Reece has got to be in this team. I don't understand why he wouldn't be.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of messages from this guy AD. Like, just let people be upset if they're upset. Like, don't judge people.
Can I just explain this right? I'm gonna give Tuchel the full support, like I do with every manager. Don't get the impression that I want Tuchel to not succeed and I want Tuchel to fail because I'm upset that Frank got sacked. It's not it at all. I will back every single manager. As I said in a video that I think you shared, I backed Mourinho, I backed Conte, I backed Sarri, I backed Frank. This is what I do. I'm not going to stop backing managers. My frustration is nothing to do with Tuchel. As I say, if he starts winning us games, if it works well, I'll be very happy. But I think it's very illogical and just silly to expect fans. This is Frank Lampard. This is not just any bloke. This is someone that is very is loved very deeply at this club. So to expect fans to just turn around and go, actually, no, I'm just going to forget about him, because no, it's not going to work like that, unfortunately. So you have to deal with that. Unfortunately, that's the way fans feel. And that's what my reaction to it. But as I say, I'll state this again. I really wish Tuchel the best.
Yeah, no, perfectly said. I just think like you have to give people their own time to process things, and everybody is different. So if you can process it in a day, great. But other people, like with all the news that's come out, my jaw hit the ground. I couldn't believe it, like how much stuff was going on behind the scenes. And it's a lot to process. So let people have their time, process the information, take a breather, but no need for this. Like, absolutely not. Anyways, let's get back into it. So we got an interesting question, and it kind of goes into the center back issue. TK13 asks, is there any way for Rudiger back with Chelsea fans? I think he's lucky that there are no fans at the bridge. And could you imagine if there are fans at the bridge, like the scenes that would be if he started? I could imagine.
It would be like Benitez, and it'd be that sort of environment. If you remember when Di Matteo was sacked in 2012. And the following game, it wasn't even just the following game. It was several. I remember going to like the Swansea League Cup game a couple months after Benitez was hired, and it was still toxic inside Stamford Bridge towards the board. So yeah, I mean, it would. I actually think for Tuchel's own sake, I think it's good fans aren't in the ground at the moment. I'm not, obviously we want fans in the ground more than anything, but I think for his own, just if I was to talk about him very personally of what he probably needs at this moment, the last thing he needs at this moment is to have a ground not against him, but have that toxicity and face it. In terms of Rudiger, listen, I've as I'm sure people know, Carefree Youth on Twitter, he knows a lot about Chelsea.
The bomb, man.
He really is. He knows a lot about Chelsea. Just because he doesn't have a verified tick mark next to him and he writes articles for a publication, this guy knows about Chelsea. I'll make this very clear. You shouldn't be abusing any player at Chelsea. I just think it reflects very poorly. And a guy that you can go back and watch videos, I was a massive fan of. I loved Antonio Rudiger when he was, I think his best was, say, the 18-19 season. And I felt he had a big future at Chelsea. as I say, I just worry what, if these players did this before and they feel like they've been vindicated in that action, what's to say they won't do it again? And it may be a different set of players, but it's more players, average performers who should have been sold in the summer, who should have been let go, who are being upset because younger performers who are better than them, who are outperforming them on the pitch, they're upset, being unprofessional. And, this is the thing that I feel that Tuchel can't really deal with. I think in the summer, Chelsea have to get rid of a lot of, it sounds harsh, but Deadwood, they need to get rid of players who don't have a long-term future at this club. They need to really streamline this squad. Players, they've got to take many L's for what they've done in the transfer window. And all this crap about saving face is just going to hurt the managers over and over again. If you don't get rid of players that don't have a future at this club, that the managers don't want, that are just going to cause a fuss because they're not playing, that's the issue. But maybe I suspect because Germany, of course, and that German connection, and the fact that the Euros, like Rudiger's a consistent player in the Germany national squad, so he'll want to be at the Euros. I wouldn't be stunned, but Zuma's a better centre back than him. Thiago Silva's a better centre back than him. So I think my hope is Tuchel it comes down to form, and if it comes down to form, then Kurt Zuma's and Thiago Silva is going to be in that back four ahead of him.
Like so well said. I literally could not say it better myself. Like we said, I think like with COVID, it was just a weird situation where we couldn't sell. It wasn't a seller's market, so we just couldn't sell the players that we should have sold, and it created this atmosphere. And like, I don't want to harp too much on it, but it just was really disappointing to see that certain players felt that they had the power to even complain about this. For me, if somebody told me, "Oh, you're not playing well enough," I would say, "Okay, I need to play better. What can I do to play better so that I can earn my spot back in the team?" Because if somebody's playing above me, surely there's a reason why. Maybe it's not that simple, but if you're playing players based on meritocracy, that's what it should be. Maybe it's not as simple as that, and there's more behind the scenes that we don't know. But I was just really disappointed in everything that happened. But let's move on. Some people are saying could see Aspian for some leadership with a back five. I really don't know which way it's going to go.
It would only be back three. Yeah, it'd only be back three. I'd have Dave. I think, as you've seen, when Frank has had to bring in Dave because of Reece's injury, I think Dave's mobility in that area has it's gone down. He's an incredible player for Chelsea. He's been an incredible servant. I think we all knew this day was coming, right? That's the only area I'd play in, because not only has he worked wonderfully in a back three, you could argue out of all the positions he's played, the many, many positions he's played for Chelsea in his Chelsea career, you'd argue the back three was probably his best maybe season under Antonio Conte, and what he's even done for Frank in that role. If Tuchel wants to play that, I wouldn't mind that at all. I think that Dave obviously adding the leadership. I think the thing is, you've got to understand about a back three is when you move further up the pitch, this is the issues Frank has had this season of who do you take out in an offensive position, who do you sacrifice? And I do wonder, with all the pressure on the current Chelsea manager to get the best out of Kai Havertz and Timo Werner, I feel that one of those potentially could be sacrificed. With the form of Mason Mount this season, you want to get him in and around that midfield. N'Golo Kante, as one of your comments said earlier, it's going to be difficult. So that's a challenge. But Dave, if you're saying a back four, Dave shouldn't be ahead of Reece. No way.
Yeah, no. So totally agree with you. I think it's a tough one because we might see Azpilicueta come in for that leadership, but we just don't know. So let's go forward with our starting 11. We've kind of we're going back and forth, but I low-key like it because I like seeing the comments that everybody's making, following along and kind of going back and forth. I'm very chill on this stream, but so let's pretend that we think it's going to stick with the 4-3-3 because that's what Tuchel usually played and that's what the team has been playing. So it would be perhaps logical to keep that, at least for the Wolves game. So who are your two center backs that you see starting?
Zouma, Thiago Silva. They've been the best partnership that Frank had this season. I don't know why you want to change that. If you watched us against Leicester last week, Zouma's got to be back in this team. And that's my back two. It should be the back two.
That would be my back too, but I have a feeling we're going to see Rudiger. I just have a feeling. So our preferred back to Silva and Zuma, but could almost expect to see Rudiger in there. At least I wouldn't be surprised if his name is in the mix. And then at left back, I think that it has to be Ben Chilwell. I don't really see anybody else taking that position from him. So now it gets interesting in the midfield. On my stream earlier, Marius actually told me that he thinks that one of the players that could find themselves back in favor is Jorginho, because Tuchel really likes to have a kind of player that can help to progress the ball from the defensive phase to the attacking phase, and that Jorginho is more or less the type of profile, at least for now, that he work with to implement that. So I think N'Golo Kante is still injured. At least I haven't seen anything on Kante. So the options really are Jorginho, Gilmour, who's very young, but I think has been very impressive. Jorginho with more experience, Kovacic, and then if we move up the pitch a little bit, we could have Mount, Havertz, etc. Who are you putting in that midfield?
For me, well, if you want to go for the players that have let the club down and have clearly caused problems in the background, I think that obviously you're going to go with someone like Jorginho, and you want experience that hasn't really been performing this season, in my opinion. So maybe he goes for Jorginho. I think he should be going for Billy Gilmour, because I think Billy Gilmour's the better bet at the moment. Once again, it comes down to style of play. I think if he wants to implement a possession-based style of football, a slower possession-based style of football, then yeah, that's what Jorginho suits. That's why he looks sort of out of place with Frank, at least at the tail end, because you're playing someone who in a high pressing system. See, if he plays a high pressing system, and we'll have the same problems as we've had before with Jorginho. So I still think Billy Gilmour should be in there, because I think Jorginho has his mobility problems. I think the Premier League is just a bit too intense for him, and I just don't think he's been performing well to justify a start. And Billy Gilmour is sort of that nice hybrid, and he's a player that's going to play daring passes. We saw this against Luton on Sunday. He's the type of player who's going to pick up the ball, show for it, look forward, sometimes hit that pass over the top of the defense that sometimes doesn't work. But it's unfortunately Jorginho just hasn't been offering that for us this season. So I think Gilmour, personally for me, I think he should be starting more games.
I think we all, or most Chelsea fans, would agree that we would love to see Gilmour starting this game. But if you're I feel like maybe he might rely more on Jorginho just for having more experience in the role. And I don't know. It's a really tough one to call, guys. Like we said, it really could go either way. But if you're going off of form, I think Gilmour deserves it. But I really wouldn't be surprised if we saw Jorginho play. And that being said, if Jorginho is playing under a new manager, he might have another reason to try to up his speed a little bit, play a little bit faster, because these players are going to want to impress this new manager and try to nail down their starting position. So perhaps we could see an improved performance from Jorginho. Don't really know who to attack in that spot, honestly. But let's just move forward. So I guess we'll have, I don't know if we'll even have attacking eights, but maybe one that's more defensive minded, one that's an A, or I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Who are you playing in that position?
Well, it's obviously Mason Mount, and for me, Mason Mount's the first name on his team sheet, and he has been like that for quite a while. It was so lovely that he did get the armband on Sunday. I think it says so much that Frank knew he was off, and he hands Mason Mount the armband for his final game.
Broke my heart, honestly.
Yeah, I mean it's. Any manager at the moment with this squad who doesn't use Mason Mount, I don't know really what you're doing. I think you're asking for trouble, because Mason has been incredible this season. He really has. He's been Chelsea's best player this season. The energy this guy brings, but it's not only just about energy. It's not only about pressing. It's about his quality of play. It's about switching the ball. And if you watch tactics videos about Thomas Tuchel, you know that switching play is a big part of the way he likes to attack. And Mason has offered that for Chelsea. His ability at corners this year has really changed the game for us, of scoring so many goals from corners. His delivery, his work rate. He will, in terms of the right mentality that you want from someone. I feel that Mason will be one of those players that will just, I think any manager would love to have, because he'll just go out there and perform the role he's asked to, and he'll give everything for the shirt, right? And I think my hope is, at least for tomorrow, Mason starts, because I don't know why he wouldn't. I don't. There's no, it's very easy to just forget form, right, with a new manager. But if we're going by form, there aren't many better players than Mason Mount at the moment. And I think it'd be lovely for Mason as well to once again prove to everyone how good he is. Because, the excuse for Mason critics has been that the only reason he plays is because of Frank Lampard, where if he does it under Thomas Tuchel, that's another stupid argument knocked down, about Mason Mount. So many stupid arguments that continue to be knocked down about Mason Mount and his quality. So I don't know, if you don't appreciate what Mason Mount does for Chelsea, you're not watching the right sport. You're not watching the same sport I am. So Mason Mount absolutely should be starting. And if he's, and if none of these young players are starting, I think, I'm not going to say worrying signs, but I just be a little bit like, I think part of the excitement is seeing these young players play for Chelsea, and what Lampard did to give these players chances. And during a tricky patch and a sticky patch under Lampard, where it got really bad, Mason was one of the only players I saw still at the right level of application. And I'm pretty sure Anthony Barry and Joe Edwards would be telling Tuchel that, I think.
Yeah, no, really well said. And something that came up on the previous stream, it's just worrying that Murray said, well, he might sacrifice Mason to play somebody like Jorginho. I was like, I do not want to see that happening at all. Absolutely not. But I did say, like, given Mason's quality, the amount that he works, and like how he's just so willing to run endlessly, to press, like his technique, he can switch play, he can take corners, he can take free kicks. I think that Tuchel's really going to see that, and I just don't see how he doesn't start, honestly, tomorrow and going forward. I think he should be one of the first names on the team sheet, because he's just that freaking good. So moving on to the attack, also kind of interesting for who we pick. Who do you think is going to start?
What do you mean, the front three?
Yeah.
I feel Pulisic, because Pulisic obviously has that natural connection to Thomas Tuchel. The guy who gave Pulisic his debut at Borussia Dortmund. And yeah, I feel that with the way he's used forwards over his career, I think that Pulisic, we saw how good Pulisic was at the back end of last season. You want to utilize that again. So I feel that Pulisic will be starting. On the right side, I feel he'll likely go over senior figure in Hakim Ziyech. Though, on the back of Sunday, I'd say Callum Hudson-Odoi has to be starting in this game, right? And I look at Thomas Tuchel. I know some people brought this up. I think Jane McIntosh said this weeks ago, that a player like Callum Hudson-Odoi, you think about the way Tuchel helped to develop Ousmane Dembele at Borussia Dortmund. Could he have a similar impact on a forward like Callum Hudson-Odoi and help develop his game? Callum probably deserves to be starting in this game based on recent form.
We actually got a question that said exactly that, so I'm glad that you touched on it.
Yeah, and I would start, out of all the forwards, I'd start Tammy Abraham, because he just scored a hat-trick, and I think I don't think he will, because I think he'll likely feel the pressure, or maybe above him already, to start playing Timo Werner. But for me, I would personally go with Tammy Abraham, because I thought Tammy had a wonderful game on Sunday. And I think you consider the fact that he's not been the main striker this year, and you look at his goal return, it's pretty impressive.
Really impressive.
And the connection he has with Mason and Callum, I think is great. So that could happen. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to know where his thinking is, and he's got there's a quick turnaround, of course, to Burnley as well, and then Tottenham, and then Sheffield United. So there's going to be rotating. There's no way he's going to, I think naturally Tuchel's going to see a lot of the squad in the next few weeks. So it's not just one game, is it? I think he's going to see a lot of players, because he's going to have to rotate them. So maybe that will help him sort of decipher who the players he can trust, who the players that fit his system the best. Well, I guess we'll find that out.
Yeah, and I just realized we forgot to do the other midfield positions. So would you
I would love to see the reaction if Kai Havertz is at number 8. I would love to see the reaction, because we've been told for months that Kai Havertz can't play as a number 8. I mean, I'd just be intrigued from a distance to see what the discussion is if Kai plays as a number 8 for Thomas Tuchel in a 4-3-3 alongside Mason Mount. and see what happens. Another one, I think it's very narratively. I think seeing Werner and Havertz in the squad, it feels, you know, all the talk about German manager was about unleashing and unlocking, you know, Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. So I would probably still go with Kai actually, because I want to see Kai a lot more in his team. So I'd probably go with him, probably in front of Mateo Kovacic. But I would, you know, I could see Kovacic being quite a useful player for Tuchel, and maybe he's a player, given reports, that was unhappy under Frank and maybe revitalized under Tuchel.
Yeah, it definitely could be. It's going to be a hard one. I'm really interested to see this starting 11 come out tomorrow and just like see how we play. I really have no expectations for this game because they've had to like really 1 or 2 days to prepare, but I imagine it must have been like an absolute emotional roller coaster as well. So I'm really just hoping for the best, and a win would be like insane, but if we don't win, I wouldn't really be surprised given the circumstances. So do you think that Chelsea, how are you feeling? You think they're going to get the win, draw?
Well, if we look down over the years of when managers, not only at Chelsea, but when managers get sacked, you sometimes will see a massive bounce, won't you? You'll see an instant reaction. So I wouldn't be surprised if some players give a reaction, depending, as we've been discussing, who starts in the game. So it's going to be tough to see. I think that the reports where it wasn't a Jose Mourinho type situation where the whole dressing room had been lost, you know. So I don't think we're going to see. I want to be proven wrong, of course. I want to see Chelsea start performing well again, but you know, I don't think it's going to be an amazing level. I don't think you're suddenly going to go, "Wow, where was this team for so long?" I think it'll be more that maybe just certain things are tweaked and certain players feel a bit more comfortable in the team again. And it's weird, isn't it? Because all that we were going into these 3 games, Luton, Wolves, and Burnley, because we were under the assumption that Frank was going to get the chance to have these 3 games, and there was a lot of stakes in these games. And to be honest, for me, those stakes have been massively sort of lowered at this point. You know, I think that, you know, they have. So it's just, for me, it's interesting to just maybe at a little bit of a distance, of course, to see where tomorrow goes, and then beyond that, see how Burnley goes. Because I think in some ways you'll see Tuchel's job as an easy one in a sense, because maybe he's under not a lot of pressure at the moment, because, well, I'm halfway into a season. You know, if he doesn't get top 4, he can hold his hands up and go, well, you know, you look at the situation I found. But I just, it is also that sense that, well, look at the points distance he's got to the likes of Liverpool, to the likes of, you know, this is not a dead season. There's still much to play for. So I feel that there could be some pressure that comes with that too, that, you know, he's got to show up and, you know, and start improving this team, because if he doesn't to a drastic extent, I think there'll be people at the end of the season asking questions going, well, why did you make that move? You know, why did you change the manager halfway through? You know, if there's not, that would be the question posed. I'm not saying, you know, he should be under any pressure, but he definitely, I think, given the reputation I'm seeing, and I feel, but this is, sorry to go back to where we were talking at the start, I've seen a lot of crap around, and it's not crap, it's I hope he is this, but I think it's unfair on him. I'm already seeing stuff referring to him as a genius and referring to him as, you know, some sort of savior to Chelsea Football Club, and it's just, you're setting yourself up for, you know, disappointment. You know, I think that in this sense, you know, I think that we should just give him time to work with the players, understand it's a difficult situation for any coach to find themselves in at Chelsea Football Club, and try and see what he can do from this point. Because I actually think he could have a really good end to the season if he can galvanize these players. Because unlike a lot of previous managers, this squad, as we know, there's a lot of excitement around the talent that could be utilized. And if it's utilized in the right way, we could see some of the best attacking we've seen at Chelsea for a number of years. So that's the challenge to Thomas Tuchel, I'm sure, from the board, that he, you know, to try and utilize all the money they spent in the summer and try and get them playing well again.
Yeah, really well said. And I think that he was brought in because the board felt that top 4 was slipping away, and that it is a requirement, or it should be a requirement for Chelsea every year. And with top 4 comes a ton of Champions League money as well, and getting to play in the Champions League. So I think that is definitely still a massive goal for Chelsea, and one that we're really going to have to get results quickly in order to try to get that last spot, because the competition is so tough. I think it's going to be between us, Leicester, Tottenham, and yeah, I think the top 3 is more or less secure. It's like City, Liverpool, I think, are going to come out of their slump, and Manchester United have been playing very well. So It's a really tough situation, but I do hope that since he has so many years of experience to fall back on, that he'll be able to use that knowledge in order to implement a system to get these players back, to inspire them, get them playing really beautiful football, scoring goals, hopefully winning games. And I'm excited because we do have such good attacking talent, as you said, and I want to see the best of them. I want to see Timo Werner scoring a crap ton of goals, and I want to see Kai Havertz doing really well. And I want, I just want the team to succeed, and I hope that he can do that. I really do.
Yeah.
So we have an interesting question. Jonathan asks, do you think if fans were at the stadium, Frank Lampard would have been sacked?
I still think yes, because that's a tough one. The only reason I'm saying yes is because I remember when Jose was struggling in 15, 16, and I was at a lot of those games where he was getting a lot of vocal support. I mean, the argument you can make, look at the difference between situations. Jose was near the relegation zone. Frank Lampard's not that far away from the top four. It's interesting as we know from these reports. Chelsea care a lot about their public image and not looking silly, so they may have waited. But I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you, based on the history of Chelsea with managers, that they would have not made a move, even with that. I think, I think it's a strong word, but I think there is a sense that it is a little bit cowardly that they've done this with no fans there, because they know that there would be a very hostile reaction. There'd be no doubts about that whatsoever. And that's unfair on Tuchel if that would have been the case. Unfair on any manager to have to experience that. To be fair, it was a bit unfair on Rafa Benitez as well. But that would be the situation they find themselves in. I'm just intrigued that Chelsea fans will not forget this. So I'm intrigued to see I hope what happens when we get back to the stadium is that it's more a case that we have a chant for Frank Lampard and then we support the team rather than any toxicity. I hope the real toxicity and sort of the anger has died down by then, because it will probably be next season. And if Tuchel's in the dugout, you hope it will be more just saying thank you to Frank rather than using that situation to pull the current team down. I think that's probably what will happen. But if it would have been tomorrow night and fans would have been there, you would have expected not the nicest situation.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, if Chelsea are winning by the time the fans are back in stadiums, I don't see any issue with this being. And the way that I kind of thought about this as well, like perhaps if fans were in the stadium, Chelsea would not have been losing as badly as they were. Like I think that the teams in general in the Premier League have been missing the fans to kind of motivate them, especially at home games. And it's something that we see, like that home side advantage, which has just been completely taken away this season. So I do think that if fans were in the stadium, maybe some of those losses would have turned to draws or even wins. Maybe the players would have been more motivated. So we just don't know, but it's an interesting point to try to make. And just going through, there's another question here. Do you think that our recruitment strategy is good? What are your thoughts?
See, I was someone who was, absolutely, I think like a lot of us were very excited about our recruitment last summer. I think the part that I absolutely can say is not good is this save-facing operation that we have in seeming to withhold players that are just not working for the club. Kepa Arrizabalaga, whether it's even to a sense Jorginho, Antonio Rudiger, Marcos Alonso, players who just don't fit into what's currently happening. And it's happened to a lot of players. You think about Alvaro Morata, Timothy Bakayoko. You got to get rid of these players. And it's nothing personal against them. It's not me saying, they can't go anywhere else and not have good careers. I've always said that, Jorginho, I think, could go to Italy and find a club and do well there in Serie A once again. I think that Antonio Rudiger could go to the Bundesliga, and he's had many offers in France as well that he'd go and play well. It's the case of, it's just natural, right? If you have unwanted players in your squad, players that know they're unwanted, that know that, for Antonio Rudiger, psychologically, he knew he was on the way out on the final day of the summer transfer deadline day, and was basically not in squads for like the first few weeks of the season. Mentally, how do you think that's going to impact a player? So it's on the board to get rid of them. I know it's been very difficult, but I don't even think you can isolate it down to COVID. I think you have to look at once again, the treatment of Frank, the Kepa Arrizabalaga situation is I think it says a lot about the eternal politics about things. So I think that unless we stop stockpiling players who don't improve our first team, who are never going to be good enough to win us a Premier League title, who are not offering us enough and have buyers elsewhere, you're going to see similar things happen. You know, if you have bloated squads of players jumbled together from different regimes, a manager's always going to find it very tricky to establish what he wants.
Yeah, no, that's so well said, honestly. And you know, in the past, the recruitment I did, like that summer where we got Zappacosta and Drinkwater and Bakayoko, you know, like that has proved to be an absolutely terrible investment. And I think that they're trying to change that. But even, you know, with Kepa, it was a weird thing that happened, that they thought that they could keep Courtois and try to persuade him to stay, but they knew he wanted to leave, and then he was like, no, well, I'm leaving, and then, you know, kind of had to pay all this money for Kepa. I do think that the recruitment strategy has improved in the past, but we've seen that Marina is just like so tough. She wants to get the absolute like best price possible when she signs these players, and at some point it's like, well, you just got to take a loss and move on with it. We do have like a couple more questions, and then we'll call it a day. So Shane asked, you guys want to see Tammy and Timo up top again, maybe sacrificing some defensive scrutiny. So just like going off of this, it could be something that we see in the future, right? I do think that, you know, anything is open. It's a new manager, a new regime. Anything could happen. Any formation could happen. We could see players that were out of favor come back into favor. We could see players that were playing really well get benched. We just don't know. But for me, I think that this is something that could be a possibility. I think that they actually do have pretty good like chemistry together. Would be interesting to see. But right now, I just feel like too early to tell. Where time will tell, essentially.
Yeah. I was quite excited seeing Tammy and Timo play up top. I think it really worked well against Luton. And you're trying to, if you're thinking about getting the best out of Timo Werner and you see how he succeeded at RB Leipzig, he did play at times up top on his own, but he also played a sort of a left forward with Yusuf Poulsen, and that worked really well for him. And I wouldn't be too surprised if Tuchel goes toward that. It's just in the Premier League, if you're playing a traditional 4-4-2 or some variation of it, it's all about that midfield battle in the Premier League, as it is in sort of modern football of trying to. I think it's the issue once again of trying to build the best midfield to protect Chelsea. And does that mean at times having to invert your fullbacks a little bit more, asking, say, a Reece to cover at times and to go into midfield, or Ben to do that to add a little bit more protection? I know at PSG he sometimes would ask the wide forwards to sort of invert a little bit and pull back a little bit at times to help him defensively. So that's going to be interesting. I feel that it's Timo Werner is a very unique forward. He's unlike any other forward Chelsea have bought before. You know, I think there are a lot of people who look at him and they even compare him to like Morata and Torres, and I can understand it to an extent with his struggles. But you know, the DNA of Chelsea strikers has been bulky, physical strikers who their best attributes are their physical attributes are shielding players off, of holding the ball, of chesting the ball down, bringing others into play like Olivier Giroud, like Diego Costa, like Didier Drogba. Timo's not like that. So if you're going to get the best out of him, I think you have to be very smart, especially in the Premier League against big, bulky, physical teams that are going to, you know, try and get in on strikers like him. I think just saying play him centrally as if that's some simplistic solution, I actually don't think will work unless you either surround him with players that can help him, because technically Timo Werner is not at the level of a Hakim Ziyech on the ball, of a Eden Hazard. He can't take the ball and take it round 3 or 4 players. You need to get him in behind that defence and in front of goal. And that's, I'm intrigued to see how Tuchel works around that, because it's a big thing that Lampard struggled with.
Yeah, no, really well said. And I'm excited to see how he handles this, because I do think that he has the tactical knowledge and prowess to get the best out of these players. So I'm really excited to see how he does that. Thank you so much for joining. You know, it's been difficult days for Chelsea fans. I myself have not been my most chipper, but I always try to bring positivity. Daniel, I know that you tried to do the same. So honestly, it's so glad that we had scheduled this, because I really couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. Just a final question. What's your score prediction for tomorrow? Let's see.
Let's be positive. Let's say 3-1 Chelsea. I
Ooh,
think that
oh,
yeah, let's go for Antonio Rudiger hat trick, 3 headers from 3 corners that go in, and he goes and hugs Thomas Tuchel on the sideline. So let's go with that. And I'll say that Kepa starts in goal and concedes an own goal and that's the one consolation. So I'll go with that. Maybe Kepa comes off the bench and concedes. That's what I'll go with. So 3-1
oh.
Chelsea. I'm not being negative. I'm predicting a win. Happy days.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for 2-1 to Chelsea, but hopefully 3-1. So any win I will be happy with. Honestly, I'll be over the moon. So thank you so much for joining me, Daniel. Guys,
No
if
worries.
you if you haven't liked this video, please drop it a like. It really does me a load of good. Please subscribe to my channel. You guys have been absolutely amazing hitting that subscribe button recently. So I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Daniel, let everybody know where they can find you, but I'm sure they already know you.
Yeah, just Son of Chelsea on YouTube. Daily videos. I've just posted my Tuchel reaction, and I've got another video about Tuchel coming out tomorrow, and I had other videos recently as well. So daily videos about Chelsea news, reviews, all that good stuff. So that's where you can find me on YouTube and also on Twitter at Son of Chelsea too.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to my third stream of the day. You guys rock. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining me. And until next time, I'm out.